The air in my lungs tasted like sterile regret as I stepped out of St. Mary's Hospital. That metallic tang of impending doom still clung to my tongue, echoing the doctor's grim prognosis. But the true bitterness came when I unlocked my front door. "Mom, my daughter, Sophia," announced, barely glancing up from the stack of official-looking documents on my kitchen table. "These are Mr. Peterson and Mr. Jenkins. They're here to transfer your inheritance to me now that your time is almost up." My smile was a thin, brittle thing, a mask I'd perfected over 7 decades. One phone call later, and I ensured she'd never utter such a disrespectful phrase again. But to understand that moment, you need to hear how I, Eleanor Henderson, a 70-year-old woman with a ticking clock, reached that precipice. Just 3 days prior, the test results had landed like a death sentence. The words of Dr. Miller, recommended, ironically, by Sophia, still ricocheted in my skull. "The tumor is aggressive, Eleanor. We're looking at maybe 15 months, 2 years if we're optimistic with treatment." I'd gone alone, as always. Sophia, my only child, was a celebrated cardiologist, too consumed by her practice and her meticulously curated life with her husband, Michael, in their sprawling mansion across town. My friends were mostly gone, and asking for help? Not my style. I'd learned early on that if you want something done right, you do it yourself. The drive home felt endless, my mind replaying Sophia's busy life, my pride warring with a growing sense of isolation. Pulling into my driveway, the sleek, unfamiliar black sedan was an unwelcome sentinel. Through the window, shadowy figures moved within my home. My heart hammered, not from illness, but from a primal maternal alarm. I pushed open the door to find Sophia at my kitchen table, flanked by 2 men in power suits. Papers sprawled between them. Sophia looked up, not with concern or love, but with pure, unadulterated impatience. "Mom," she said, without rising. "Perfect timing. These are Mr. Peterson and Mr. Jenkins from Sterling and Associates. They're here to help us transfer your assets into my name, given your situation." I stood there, purse still clutched, the hospital clothes clinging to me. "My situation?" I echoed, the words tasting like ash. Michael, leaning against my counter, cleared his throat. "Sophia told them about your diagnosis, Eleanor. We thought it would be better to handle the paperwork now. While you're still coherent." Coherent. As if cancer had stripped me of my mind. The older lawyer, Mr. Peterson, offered a practiced, oily smile that sent shivers down my spine. "Mrs. Henderson, we understand this is a difficult time. We're here to make the transition as smooth as possible for your family." I searched Sophia's face, desperate for a glimpse of the little girl I'd raised, the one I'd worked 2 jobs for after her father, Robert, died when she was just 16. The teenager I'd driven to every debate, every scholarship interview. The young woman whose medical school tuition I'd paid by selling the house Robert and I had built, brick by loving brick. "How did you know about my diagnosis?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Sophia fidgeted, avoiding my gaze. "Dr. Miller called me. Professional courtesy. My oncologist. The one Sophia herself had recommended." I had explicitly requested privacy, a concept apparently alien when convenience was at stake. "And your first thought was to call lawyers?" Michael stepped forward, irritation etched on his face. He'd never liked me. "Eleanor, let's be practical. You'll need care, possibly hospice. These arrangements take time. Sophia can't be dealing with legal complexities while trying to help you." "Help me?" When had Sophia ever helped me with anything beyond canceling plans or dropping off their golden retriever, Buddy, before a luxurious vacation? I dropped my purse on the counter. On the table lay property transfer documents, power of attorney forms, bank authorizations. They were prepared for every contingency. "How long have you been planning this?" The question hung heavy, like the unspoken accusations in the air. Sophia finally met my eyes, a fleeting flicker of guilt in their depths, gone before I could grasp it. "Mom, don't be dramatic. We're trying to help you." That word, help. I almost laughed, but a choked sob escaped instead. 28 years of raising her alone. 28 years of prioritizing her needs above my own. 28 years of believing blood meant family. And this was my reward. My thoughts drifted to the life insurance, worth a substantial sum. The house, finally paid off. The savings account, meticulously built, intended as a legacy for Sophia. Money I'd saved by clipping coupons, driving the same car for 2 decades, denying myself every small pleasure. I need some time to think about this, I managed. Michael's jaw clenched. Time is exactly what we don't have, Eleanor. These processes can take months. My mother just received devastating news, Sophia interjected, her tone flat, rehearsed. Of course, she needs time to process. I truly looked at her, this stranger who spoke of me as if I were already irrelevant, a problem to be managed. The lawyers began packing their papers, promising to call tomorrow. Michael followed them to the door, whispering about timelines. Sophia remained at the table, alone with me for the first time in months. I know this seems sudden, she said, her voice softer now. But I'm trying to protect you, Mom. To make sure you're taken care of. I wanted to believe her. How desperately I wanted to believe that somewhere beneath this cold exterior lay the little girl who'd once called me the best mom in the world. But her nervous finger drumming, her averted gaze, spoke volumes. This wasn't about protection. It was about possession. As she left, promising to call, I made my decision. If Sophia thought she could push around a dying old woman, she was about to learn that her mother still had fight left. I reached for my phone. The call had to be made. Sleep refused to claim me that night. I sat in my living room, surrounded by 28 years of memories, a museum of a life someone else was already planning to dismantle. I wandered into Sophia's old bedroom, preserved exactly as she'd left it. Her high school trophies gleamed, her medical school acceptance letter framed on the wall. Photos of us together covered her dresser. Looking at them now, a heartbreaking truth dawned. In every single picture, my gaze was fixed on her with pure, unconditional love. Hers, however, was always on the camera. From under her bed, I pulled a shoebox filled with report cards and school projects. The Mother's Day card from 3rd grade, my mom is the best because she works hard to take care of me. The high school essay calling me her hero for raising her alone. The thank you note when I sold my wedding ring to pay for her MCAT prep. When had those words become meaningless? When had I ceased being her hero and become her burden? The phone call I made wasn't to a lawyer. It was to my sister, Doris, the only family I had left besides Sophia. Doris lived in Seattle now, we only spoke on holidays. But she remembered my sacrifices. Eleanor, it's past midnight your time. What's wrong? I poured out everything, the diagnosis, the lawyers, Sophia's cold indifference. Doris listened, a silent anchor. I'm not surprised, she said finally. That girl's been taking you for granted for years. She's my daughter, Doris. And you're her mother. But when was the last time she acted like it? That question haunted me long after we hung up. When had Sophia last asked about my life, my health, my happiness? When had she called just to talk, not because she needed something? I couldn't remember. The next morning, Michael called before Sophia. That should have been my first warning. Eleanor, I hope you've had time to think about our conversation. I have, I said carefully. Good. Sophia and I have discussed your situation, and we think it would be best if you moved in with us, at least temporarily, while you're undergoing treatment. My situation. Again, as if my cancer was a logistical inconvenience. That's very generous, Michael. But I'm comfortable in my own home. His voice hardened. Eleanor, let's be realistic. You'll need help. Sophia can't be driving across town every time you have an emergency. Emergency. I had lived alone for a decade since retiring, never once calling Sophia for a real emergency. I'd sprained my ankle 2 winters ago and driven myself to urgent care. I'd had food poisoning last spring and managed fine. I'd been handling my own emergencies my entire adult life. What does Sophia think about this plan? A pause. Sophia wants what's best for you. Of course, we both do. But Sophia hadn't called. She'd sent her husband, just as she'd sent lawyers. I'll think about it, I said, hanging up before he could respond. An hour later, Sophia finally called. Her voice was strained, tired, as if this whole situation was an immense burden. Mom, Michael says you're being difficult about the living arrangements. Difficult. Another cut. I hadn't been difficult working 16-hour days to put food on our table. I hadn't been difficult giving up my own dreams of going back to school. I wasn't difficult spending my life savings on her wedding, her house down payment, her student loans. I just think I should have some say in my own life, Sophia. She sighed, and I could picture her rubbing her temples. Mom, you're not thinking clearly right now. The diagnosis, the shock. It's normal to resist change, but you need to trust me. I'm a doctor. I know what's best for your care. What's best for my care, not what's best for me. When did you start planning this, Sophia? The lawyers, the papers, the living arrangements. When did you and Michael decide my life for me? Another pause, longer this time. We've been concerned about you for a while, Mom. You're getting older. You live alone. And now, with the cancer. Concerned about me, or concerned about my assets? The silence was deafening. I had asked the question neither of us wanted to face, a truth too ugly to ignore. Mom, that's not fair. Isn't it? You haven't visited in 3 months, Sophia. You haven't called except to cancel plans or ask favors. But the day I get a cancer diagnosis, suddenly you're concerned enough to have lawyers ready? I've been busy with work. You've been busy with work for a decade. It was true. Ever since she finished her residency and married Michael, our relationship had become a series of postponed lunches and forgotten phone calls. I'd told myself she was building her career, her marriage, her life. I'd convinced myself this was normal. But sitting in that kitchen, where I'd helped her with homework every night for 12 years, I realized this distance wasn't normal. Indifference wasn't normal. This cold, calculating approach to my illness wasn't normal. Mom, I think you need to understand something. Michael and I have been talking, and we think you might benefit from counseling. The diagnosis has clearly affected your judgment. My judgment. Now I was not only sick but mentally compromised. It was like watching someone systematically dismantle my dignity. There's nothing wrong with my judgment, Sophia. Then why are you fighting us on something that's clearly in your best interest? Because it wasn't. It was in theirs. Moving me into their house meant control over my daily life, my medical decisions, my finances. It meant Michael could monitor every doctor's appointment, every transaction. I thought about the life insurance, the house, the savings. All would go to Sophia when I died, as I'd always planned. But now I wondered, would she even wait for me to die? I need more time to think, I said. Mom, we don't have time. The cancer. The cancer is in my body, Sophia. Not my brain. I can still make my own decisions. She was quiet. When she spoke again, her voice was cold, professional, like she was talking to a difficult patient. Fine, but don't take too long. Michael says the legal processes are time-sensitive. After she hung up, I cried. Not for the cancer, but for the daughter I had lost. The little girl who held my hand was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw me as an asset. But as I wiped my tears, I made a decision. If Sophia and Michael thought they could manipulate a sick old woman, they were about to learn I hadn't survived 70 years by being anyone's fool. I reached for my phone again. This time, I called someone who could help me fight back. The person I called wasn't a lawyer. It was Brenda Hayes, my next-door neighbor for the past 9 years. Brenda, 73, sharp as a tack, possessed the blunt honesty born from surviving 4 marriages and raising 6 children on her own. She was also a retired private investigator. "Eleanor, honey, I've been watching those fancy cars in your driveway," she said when I explained everything. Something didn't smell right. Within 2 days, Brenda had information that made my blood run cold. Michael wasn't just an ambitious lawyer with expensive tastes. He was a gambling addict with debts that would make your head spin. She showed me printouts of his credit report, photos of him at the Grand Casino, records of cash advances against multiple credit cards. "Your son-in-law owes over $250,000, Brenda said, spreading the papers across my kitchen table. "And that's just what I could find easily. There's probably more." I stared at the documents, feeling sick. "Does Sophia know?" "Honey, I've seen this pattern before. Men like Michael are masters at hiding their problems from their wives. They make just enough payments to keep the house of cards standing, but eventually, it all crashes down." That evening, I decided to pay Sophia and Michael an unexpected visit. I rarely went to their house. Michael always made me feel unwelcome. But I needed to see Sophia with my own eyes, to understand how much she knew about her husband's lies. Their house was everything mine wasn't: modern, opulent, impeccably decorated. Michael answered the door in a polo shirt and khakis, annoyed by my unannounced arrival. "Eleanor, what brings you by?" I wanted to talk to Sophia about the living arrangements. He hesitated, clearly not wanting to let me in. "She's in the kitchen. We were just having dinner." I found Sophia at their granite countertop, picking at a salad, scrolling on her phone. She looked up, startled, and for a fleeting moment, I saw my little girl again. She looked tired, stressed, older than her 45 years. "Mom, what's wrong?" "I've been thinking about what you said about moving in here." Michael perked up behind me. "That's wonderful news, Eleanor. We can start making arrangements tomorrow." I watched Sophia's face. Instead of happiness, I saw a profound sense of entrapment. Her eyes darted to Michael, then back to me, and I saw something I hadn't expected: fear. "Are you sure, Mom? I mean, we want you here, of course, but maybe you should take more time." Michael's hand landed on Sophia's shoulder, and I saw her flinch. "Sophia's just worried about disrupting your routine, Eleanor, but we both agree it's the best option." The way he spoke for her, the way she automatically deferred to him, the way her whole body language changed when he was in the room. Suddenly, everything clicked. Sophia wasn't the villain. She was another victim. I spent the next hour making small talk, observing their dynamics. Michael dominated every conversation, corrected Sophia, made decisions without consulting her. When Sophia mentioned being tired from a long day, Michael suggested she was being dramatic. When she mused about a vacation, he reminded her of their financial goals. As I was leaving, Sophia walked me to my car. For the first time in years, we were alone. "Mom, are you really okay with this? Okay, moving in with us?" I studied her face in the porch light. She looked younger somehow, more vulnerable. "Are you okay with it, sweetheart?" She glanced back at the house, where Michael was visible through the window, watching us. "I just want what's best for you." "What about what's best for you?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. When was the last time anyone had asked Sophia what she wanted? "I'm fine, Mom. Michael takes good care of me." But the way she said it, as if trying to convince herself, told me everything. That night, I called Brenda again. "I need you to dig deeper into Michael's background, not just the gambling. Everything." "What are you thinking, honey?" "I'm thinking my daughter is married to a man who sees women as resources to be exploited. And I'm thinking I might not be his first target." Brenda called me back the next morning with information that made my hands shake. Michael had been married before, to a woman named Claire Roberts. Claire's elderly mother had died in a suspicious car accident just weeks before Claire filed for divorce, citing financial abuse. The mother's will had been changed shortly before her death, leaving everything to Michael. Claire's mother had been in perfect health, Brenda explained. No history of seizures that would explain losing control of her car. The police investigated, but couldn't prove anything. What happened to Claire? She got nothing in the divorce. Michael had hidden all the assets. Claimed the old lady's money was a gift to him personally. Claire ended up declaring bankruptcy. I felt physically ill. Michael wasn't just a gambling addict. He was a predator. And now he had his sights on Sophia and me. There's more, Brenda continued. I found records of Michael consulting with elder law attorneys 7 months ago. He was asking about conservatorship, power of attorney laws, what constitutes mental incompetence in elderly patients. 7 months ago. Long before my cancer diagnosis. Michael had been planning to take control of my assets since before I was even sick. He had been studying the legal system, preparing for the moment he could strike. I thought about Sophia, saving lives at the hospital, while her husband plotted to steal from her dying mother. I thought about how isolated she had become, how she rarely saw friends anymore, how every decision in her life seemed to go through Michael first. Brenda, I need one more favor. Name it. I need you to help me save my daughter. The plan we devised wasn't complicated, but it required perfect timing. First, I needed to make Michael believe he was winning. I called Sophia that afternoon and told her I had decided to move in. I could hear the relief in her voice, but also resignation. That's wonderful, Mom. Michael will be so pleased. Michael was practically giddy when he called an hour later. We scheduled movers for the following week. He offered to help me organize my finances, suggesting I sign power of attorney documents immediately. Everything was moving exactly as he planned. What he didn't know was that I was planning too. That evening, I sat in my living room, looking at the life I was about to leave. Not because I wanted to, but because sometimes you have to lose a battle to win a war. I was going to let Michael think he had defeated me, right up until the moment I destroyed him. But first, I had to make sure Sophia was ready to see the truth. And that was going to be the hardest part of all. Moving into Sophia and Michael's house was like stepping into a beautiful prison. They gave me the guest room on the first floor, with an adjoining bathroom and a view of their manicured backyard. Michael made a big show of helping me settle in, carrying my suitcases, talking about how wonderful it would be to have me close during my treatment. But within the first week, I understood what this arrangement really meant. Michael controlled everything, the thermostat, the TV channels, the meal schedule, even when I could use the washing machine. He framed it all as concern for my health. But Sophia and I both knew it was about control. Mom, you should rest more, Sophia would say when I tried to help with dishes. But in her eyes, I saw, Michael doesn't want you in the kitchen when he's talking business. Eleanor, let me handle your medications, Michael would insist, taking the bottles from my hands. We want to make sure you don't accidentally double dose. What he really meant was, I want to know exactly what you're taking and when. The worst part was watching what this was doing to Sophia. She had started walking on eggshells, second-guessing every word. When Michael was around, she barely spoke. When he left for work, she seemed to physically exhale, like she could finally breathe. I had been there 2 weeks when Brenda called with the information I had been waiting for. Our code, if she called and asked about my book club, she had something. Eleanor, honey, how's your book club going? It's going well, Brenda. What are we reading this week? A very interesting story about financial records and phone calls. You might want to check your email tonight when you have some privacy. That evening, while Michael was in his study and Sophia was on call, I opened my laptop. Brenda had sent a folder of documents that made my blood boil. Bank statements showing Michael had been forging Sophia's signature on loan applications. Phone records proving he'd been lying about his whereabouts during his gambling binges. Credit card statements with casino charges on days he told Sophia he was meeting clients. But the most damning evidence, a series of emails between Michael and his bookie. Not only did he owe far more than Brenda had initially discovered, but he had been using Sophia's medical license number to guarantee some of his debts. If he defaulted, they could go after her professional certification, her ability to practice medicine, her entire career. My daughter had no idea that her husband had put everything she worked for at risk. I printed everything and hid the papers in my medication bag. Then I sat on my bed and planned my next move. I needed Sophia to see these, but in a way that wouldn't put her in immediate danger. Michael's behavior had become increasingly possessive since I moved in. I had seen him lose his temper with Sophia over small things: a dinner 5 minutes late, a phone call too long, a smile she gave the mailman. The opportunity came 3 days later when Michael announced he was going out of town for a client meeting. I knew from Brenda's surveillance he was actually going to Atlantic City for the weekend. This would be my first real chance to talk to Sophia alone. Friday evening, after Michael left, I found Sophia in the kitchen, staring at an unpaid bill notice. She looked exhausted, confused, like she was trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. "Sweetheart, can we talk?" She looked up, startled. "Of course, Mom, is everything okay? Are you feeling all right?" It broke my heart that her first concern was always my physical health, never her own. "I'm fine, but I'm worried about you." "Me?" "Mom, I'm not the one who's sick." I sat down across from her, just like we used to when she had school problems. "Sophia, when was the last time you were happy?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She blinked, opened her mouth, then closed it. What do you mean?" "I mean really happy. When was the last time you smiled because you wanted to, not because someone expected you to? When was the last time you made a decision just because it's what you wanted?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Mom, I don't understand what you're asking. When was the last time you went out with friends? When was the last time you bought something for yourself without asking permission? When was the last time you had a conversation without worrying about saying the wrong thing?" The tears flowed freely. Sophia covered her face, years of suppressed emotion finally breaking through. "I don't know," she whispered. "I can't remember." I reached across the table and took her shaking hands. "Baby, I need to show you something, but you have to promise me you'll stay calm and listen." She nodded, wiping her eyes. I went to my room and returned with the folder. I hired someone to investigate Michael's finances. "Mom, why would you?" "Because I was worried about you, and because something didn't feel right about how eager he was to get control of my money." I spread the papers across the table, watching Sophia's face as she processed the truth. The forged signatures, the hidden debts, the gambling receipts, the threats from creditors, the emails discussing her medical license as collateral. With each document, my daughter's world crumbled. The color drained from her face. Her hands shook harder. She stared at the papers as if they were written in a foreign language. "This can't be real," she whispered. "Michael wouldn't. He loves me." "Sweetheart, love doesn't put your career at risk without your knowledge. Love doesn't forge your signature on legal documents. Love doesn't lie to you every single day." She stared at a bank statement showing a $50,000 loan in her name. "I never signed this. I never even saw this. He told me we were financially stable. He said we were saving for retirement. He was saving for his next bet." Sophia looked up at me with the most heartbroken expression I had ever seen. "Mom, what am I going to do? How could I have been so stupid?" "You're not stupid, baby. You're trusting. There's a difference. But how did I not see this? How did I not know?" I thought about all the ways Michael had isolated her, controlled her, made her doubt her own instincts. "Because he's very good at manipulation. And because you're a good person who assumes other people are good, too." We sat in silence for a long time. Sophia staring at the evidence of her husband's betrayal. Finally, she looked up at me with something I hadn't seen in her eyes for years: determination. "What do we do now?" "Now we make sure he can never hurt you again." But even as I said it, I heard Michael's car in the driveway. He was home early, and the incriminating documents were still spread across the kitchen table. Sophia's eyes went wide with panic. "Quick," I whispered, gathering the papers. "Act like nothing happened. Michael walked through the door just as I slid the last document into my folder. He looked at Sophia's tear-stained face, then at me. Suspicion narrowed his eyes. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice deceptively casual. Sophia opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see her falling back into that familiar pattern of fear. That's when I knew, showing her the truth wasn't enough. Michael's control was too strong, too deeply ingrained. If we were going to save Sophia and stop Michael from stealing my assets, I was going to have to force his hand, leaving him no choice but to reveal his true nature. And I had to do it soon, before he realized how much we had discovered. "Just discussing Eleanor's medical appointments," I said smoothly, meeting Michael's suspicious gaze. Sophia was helping me organize my treatment schedule. Michael's eyes narrowed as he looked between us. Sophia was still pale, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her water glass. I could see him calculating, trying to determine if we were telling the truth. "Right," he said slowly. "Well, I'm glad you're both being so organized about things." The way he said organized made my skin crawl, as if we were two children needing supervision. Over the next few days, I watched Michael's behavior more carefully than ever. He was suspicious, but not yet alarmed. He started checking on me more frequently, asking about my appointments, my phone calls, even commenting on how long I spent in my room. Sophia noticed, too. I could see her watching him with new eyes, finally recognizing the controlling behaviors she'd been blind to for so long. But Michael was smart. He had spent years perfecting his manipulation, and he wasn't going to slip up easily. I needed to create a situation where he would reveal his true nature in a way Sophia couldn't ignore. The opportunity came when my oncologist's office called to schedule my next round of tests. Michael insisted on taking the call, speaking to the nurse as if he were my medical proxy. I watched Sophia's face as he made decisions about my care without consulting me, and I could see recognition dawning in her eyes. "Michael," she said quietly after he hung up. "Shouldn't Mom be the one making those decisions?" His response was swift and calculated. "Sophia, your mother is clearly overwhelmed by all of this. She needs us to help her think clearly." There it was, the subtle implication that I was mentally incompetent, that I couldn't be trusted. It was exactly the kind of groundwork he needed to lay for a conservatorship claim. That night, I called Brenda from my bedroom and told her it was time to execute our plan. "Are you sure about this, honey? Once we start this ball rolling, there's no going back." "I'm sure. Sophia deserves to know what kind of man she married, and I'll be damned if I let him steal everything I've worked for." The plan was simple, but required perfect timing. Brenda had been monitoring Michael's gambling activities, and we knew he had a big poker game scheduled for the following Friday night. He had told Sophia he was attending a legal conference, but we knew better. While Michael was out losing money he didn't have, Brenda and I would stage a scene that would force him to show his true colors when he returned home. Friday evening arrived. Michael left for his conference with a briefcase full of legal documents that I knew were actually betting sheets and IOUs. Sophia was working late, which gave Brenda and me time to set everything up. Brenda arrived at 9 o'clock with a folder of additional documents her investigation had uncovered. These were even more damaging. Evidence that Michael had been researching my medical condition online, looking for information about how cancer affects cognitive function. He had been building a case for my mental incompetence before I was even diagnosed. "The bastard has been planning this for months," Brenda said, spreading the papers across the coffee table. "Look at the search history: early signs of dementia in cancer patients, legal grounds for conservatorship, power of attorney for incompetent adults." I felt sick reading the evidence of Michael's calculated cruelty. He had been waiting for me to get sick so he could swoop in and take control. When cancer provided the perfect opportunity, he was ready with lawyers and legal documents. "There's more," Brenda continued. "I found records of him consulting with a geriatric psychiatrist about getting you declared mentally unfit. He never scheduled an appointment, but he was gathering information about the process." At 10:30, Sophia came home to find Brenda and me sitting in the living room with all the evidence spread out. Her face went white when she saw the additional documents. Oh my God, she whispered, picking up a printout of Michael's internet searches. He was planning this even before you got sick. Read this one, I said, handing her a particularly damning email Michael had sent to his gambling buddy. In it, he bragged about having found the perfect mark, an elderly woman with assets and a naive daughter, who would never suspect what he was doing. Sophia sank into a chair, staring at the email. He called you a mark. He called me naive. Because that's what we were to him, I said gently. You were never his wife, sweetheart. You were his access to respectability and financial security. We heard Michael's car in the driveway at 11:15. Brenda quickly gathered most of the documents, but we left a few strategically placed on the coffee table, just enough to make it obvious we had been discussing something important, but not enough to reveal the full scope of what we knew. Michael walked in, looking disheveled and angry. The poker game hadn't gone well. When he saw Brenda, his mood darkened further. What's she doing here? He asked, not even bothering to hide his hostility. Brenda brought over some information about support groups for cancer patients, Sophia said, her voice steadier than I had heard it in weeks. Michael's eyes swept over the papers on the coffee table. I could see him trying to read them from across the room, trying to determine if they were a threat. It's pretty late for a social visit, he said to Brenda, his tone barely civil. Brenda smiled sweetly. Oh, I don't mind staying up late when it's important. Eleanor and Sophia have been so worried about the financial impact of the medical bills. I was just sharing some resources about assistance programs. The word financial made Michael's jaw tighten. I think we have that under control. Do you? Brenda asked innocently. Because from what I understand, medical expenses can be overwhelming, especially when there are other financial pressures involved. It was a subtle jab, but Michael caught it. His eyes narrowed as he looked at Brenda with newfound suspicion. I think it's time for you to leave, he said bluntly. Brenda stood up, gathering her purse. Of course, Eleanor. Sophia, you both have my number if you need anything. Anything at all. After Brenda left, Michael immediately turned to Sophia. What was that really about? What do you mean? Don't play dumb with me, Sophia. That woman doesn't give a damn about cancer support groups. What was she really doing here? I watched my daughter struggle. The old Sophia would have apologized, explained everything to appease his anger. But the new Sophia, the one who had seen the evidence of his betrayal, simply said, she's a friend helping my mother. That's all you need to know. Michael's mask slipped completely. The charming, concerned husband disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. That's all I need to know, he repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. About what's happening in my own house. With my own wife? Your wife can have friends over without your permission, Sophia said, her voice getting stronger. Not when those friends are filling your head with ideas about finances that don't concern them. My mother's finances don't concern you either, Michael. The room went dead silent. I could see Michael processing what Sophia had just said, realizing that something fundamental had shifted. Excuse me, he said. Sophia stood up, and for the first time since I had moved in, she looked him directly in the eye. I said, my mother's finances don't concern you. She's perfectly capable of making her own decisions about her medical care and her money. Michael's face turned red. Your mother is dying, Sophia. She's not thinking clearly. Someone needs to protect her from making decisions she'll regret. The only person she needs protection from is you. The words hung in the air like a declaration of war. Michael stared at Sophia with an expression of pure rage, and I realized we had pushed him exactly where he needed to be, past the point of maintaining his facade. What did you just say to me? He asked, his voice low and threatening. And that's when I knew our trap had worked perfectly. Michael was about to show Sophia exactly who he really was. What happened next unfolded exactly as I had hoped, though it was still painful to watch. Michael's mask didn't just slip, it shattered completely. You ungrateful, he snarled at Sophia, his voice filled with venom. Sophia stepped back, shock written across her face. In 10 years of marriage, Michael had never spoken to her like this. His control had always been subtle, wrapped in concern and false affection. "Michael, please calm down." "Don't tell me to calm down," he shouted, stepping toward her. "I've spent years building a life for us, making sacrifices, and now you want to throw it all away because some nosy old neighbor filled your head with lies?" I stayed silent, letting him reveal himself. Every word he spoke confirmed what Brenda and I had uncovered. "What sacrifices?" Sophia asked, her voice shaking but defiant. "What exactly have you sacrificed for me?" Michael laughed bitterly. "You think your little doctor's salary pays for this house? For your car? For the lifestyle you've gotten so comfortable with? I thought we built this together." "We built nothing together. I built this, me. While you were playing with sick people at the hospital, I was making the real money. I was taking the risks." "What risks?" And there it was. The opening I had been waiting for. "Investments, Sophia. High-stakes investments that your simple little mind couldn't understand. But now that we're finally positioned to cash in, you want to throw it all away to protect Mommy's feelings?" Sophia looked at him like she was seeing a stranger. "What investments, Michael? Show me the paperwork." Michael's eyes flickered with panic, and I knew he was realizing he had said too much. "You don't need to worry about the details." "Show me the paperwork," Sophia repeated, her voice stronger now. "I don't have to show you anything. I'm the one who handles our finances." "Our finances," Sophia said slowly. "Using my name, using my credit, using my medical license as collateral." Michael went completely still. "What did you say?" I decided it was time to speak up. "She said you used her medical license as collateral for your gambling debts, Michael. Did you really think we wouldn't find out?" His head whipped toward me, and I saw pure hatred in his eyes. "You meddling old witch. This is all your fault." "No," Sophia said firmly. "This is your fault. All of it." Michael spun back to face her. "You don't understand what you're doing, Sophia. If you fight me on this, you'll lose everything. The house, your practice, your reputation. I'll make sure you have nothing." "I already have nothing," Sophia said quietly. "I've been living with nothing for years. No happiness, no freedom, no respect. At least now I know why. I watched my daughter find her strength, and I felt prouder of her than I had ever felt." Michael made one last desperate attempt at control. "Sophia, baby, listen to me. Your mother is sick. She's not thinking clearly. These people are manipulating her, trying to turn her against family. Don't let them destroy what we've built." But Sophia was done being manipulated. "What we've built is a lie, Michael. Our marriage is a lie. You never loved me. You loved what you could take from me." Michael's face contorted with rage. For a moment, I thought he might become violent, but then something else took over: calculation. He looked between Sophia and me, already planning his next move. "Fine," he said coldly. "Have it your way. But don't come crying to me when you realize what you've thrown away." He turned and walked toward the stairs, probably to pack a bag and figure out his next con. But I wasn't done. "Michael," I called out. He stopped, but didn't turn around. "The documents Brenda and I have compiled have been copied to several attorneys, as well as the state medical board and the district attorney's office. If you're thinking about running, you should know that using someone's professional license as collateral without their knowledge is a felony, as is forging signatures on loan documents." Now he turned around, his face pale. "You're bluffing." I smiled. "Call my bluff." He stared at me for a long moment, then rushed upstairs. We could hear him moving frantically, probably destroying what evidence he could find. Sophia sank onto the couch, exhausted but relieved. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have seen this. I should have protected you." "Sweetheart, you couldn't protect me because you didn't even know you needed protection yourself." Michael is very good at what he does. How long have you known? I suspected something was wrong from the moment he showed up with those lawyers, but I didn't know how deep it went until Brenda started digging. We heard Michael's car screech out of the driveway an hour later. He took a suitcase and his laptop, but he left everything else. I suspected he wouldn't be back. The next few weeks were difficult, but liberating. Sophia filed for divorce and cooperated fully with the district attorney's investigation into Michael's financial crimes. We discovered his debts were even worse than we initially thought. He owed money to bookies, casinos, and several credit card companies. The house was mortgaged far beyond its value, and Sophia's credit was ruined. But something wonderful happened as we worked through the wreckage. Sophia and I found each other again. Without Michael's constant manipulation, my daughter began to remember who she was before him. She laughed more, spoke her mind, made decisions without seeking approval. "Mom," she said one evening as we sat in the living room of her house, soon to be sold. "I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For the last 10 years. For letting him turn me into someone I didn't recognize. For not being the daughter you deserved." I took her hand. "You were never the problem, sweetheart. You were just trying to make your marriage work. That's what good people do. I almost let him steal everything from you. But you didn't. When it mattered, you chose what was right." 3 months later, Michael was arrested in Las Vegas, trying to run another con on an elderly widow. The evidence Brenda and I had gathered ensured he was prosecuted to the full extent of the law. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison for fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. Sophia lost the house, but we found a small apartment together near the hospital where she worked. My cancer treatment was going better than expected, and the doctors were cautiously optimistic. Most importantly, I had my daughter back. 1 year later, Sophia met a nurse named Daniel who treated her with the respect and kindness she deserved. Watching her tentatively learn to trust again was one of the most beautiful things I had ever witnessed. "Are you happy?" I asked her one day as we sat on our apartment porch, watching the sunset. She was quiet for a moment, considering the question I had asked her that night in Michael's kitchen. "I am," she said finally. "For the first time in years, I'm actually happy." "Good. That's all I ever wanted for you." "Mom, thank you for saving me." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you for letting me." The phone call I made that day when I got back from the hospital wasn't to a lawyer or a financial advisor. It was to Brenda, a neighbor who became the key to exposing the truth and saving my daughter from a life of manipulation and control. Sometimes the people who try to take advantage of us underestimate the strength that comes from having nothing left to lose. Michael thought he was dealing with a dying old woman and her naive daughter. What he got was 2 women who refused to be victims. Sophia never got the inheritance Michael was trying to steal, because I decided to spend my remaining years giving her something much more valuable: her freedom and her self-respect. And in return, she gave me the greatest gift of all, the chance to be her mother again, not just her burden. That was the real inheritance we both received. Not money or property, but the love and respect we had lost and found again. And no one could ever take that away from us.